The pen hovered above the contract, black ink catching the fluorescent light of the conference room. I watched Liam Parker's hand move across the signature line. Smooth, practiced, inevitable. That flourish on the P, the tight loop of the K, the way the R collapsed into a horizontal line. I'd seen that signature before, 7 years ago, in my high school locker, on a folded piece of notebook paper that made no sense then and somehow made perfect sense now. The same handwriting, the same name, the same impossible coincidence that felt less like chance and more like a door I'd been walking toward my entire life without knowing it. Before we start, tell me where you're watching from, and hit subscribe for more stories that feel written by fate. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after I'd sent out my 47th resume into the void. Parker & Co. wasn't just another firm. It was the firm, the kind of place that appeared in business school case studies and LinkedIn daydreams. Strategic consulting, global clients, offices in 12 countries, the kind of company that didn't respond to applications from people like me, but they had. Dear applicant, it began, cold and impersonal as hospital lighting. We are pleased to invite you to a preliminary interview for the junior analyst position. Please confirm your availability for Thursday, 9 a.m. Punctuality is expected. Preparation is assumed. No pleasantries, no encouragement, just dates, times, and the faint metallic taste of a test I hadn't studied for. I read it 5 times, each pass sharpening the reality. My student loans sat at $127,000. My apartment lease ended in 60 days. My savings account contained $843 and a recurring nightmare about moving back to my parents' basement. This wasn't just an opportunity. It was a lifeline thrown from a ship I'd been swimming toward for years, exhausted and half-drowned. I clicked accept before I could think too hard about drowning. That night, I stared at my ceiling and made a quiet promise to myself. Whatever happened in that interview room, I wouldn't be desperate, wouldn't overshare, wouldn't let the weight of my circumstances show through the seams of my suit jacket. The past, the struggle, the rejections, the nights eating ramen and refreshing job boards would stay locked away where it belonged. I had no idea the past was already sitting in an office on the 42nd floor, waiting for me with my name on a file folder. Don't be yourself, my older sister Rachel said over the phone Wednesday night. I know that's the opposite of what everyone tells you, but trust me. Be the version of yourself they want to hire. She worked in corporate law, survived by rules and caution. Her advice came in bullet points. Arrive 15 minutes early, not 20. 20 looks desperate. Don't mention your college unless they ask. Don't apologize for anything. And for God's sake, don't tell them about your gap year backpacking through Southeast Asia. They'll think you're flighty. I'm not flighty. I know that, but they don't. And first impressions are the only impressions that matter. She paused. The silence stretched between us like old elastic. You've got this. Just don't let them see you sweat. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and pulled open my desk drawer. Beneath old receipts and a tangle of charging cables, I found it. The note, yellowed at the edges, creased down the middle from years folded in half. The paper had gone soft, almost fabric-like, from being carried in too many pockets. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was neat, deliberate, slightly slanted to the right. Black ink, faded now to a dusty grey. Keep your head when doors swing shut. Liam Parker. I'd found it in my locker during senior year of high school, tucked between my calculus textbook and a half-eaten granola bar. No explanation, no context. Just those 8 words and a name I didn't recognize. At first I thought it was a prank. Then I thought it was meant for someone else. Then, slowly, as months passed and life got harder, college applications rejected, scholarships denied, plans collapsing like wet cardboard, I started carrying it with me. Not for luck, for something quieter. A reminder that someone, somewhere, once thought I was worth leaving a message for. I never found out who Liam Parker was, never Googled him, never asked around. Part of me didn't want to know. The mystery felt safer than the truth. Now staring at the note under my desk lamp, I felt a strange vertigo. Parker & Co. Liam Parker. Same name, different context. Coincidence. It had to be. I folded the note back along its original crease, slipped it into my wallet, and tried to sleep. Thursday morning arrived with rain. Not the soft kind that mists your windshield, but the aggressive kind that punches through umbrellas and turns sidewalks into rivers. I stood on the subway platform at 7:43 a.m., watching water drip from the ceiling onto the tracks below. My suit jacket smelled faintly of mothballs. My shoes were polished but old. The leather cracked along the toe. The train was late. I checked my phone. 7:51 a.m. The interview was at 9:00. The office was 30 minutes away, assuming normal traffic. I had margin, I had time. But margin evaporates fast in cities. The train finally arrived at 8:02, packed shoulder to shoulder with commuters who smelled like coffee and resignation. I wedged myself between a man reading the financial section and a teenager with headphones leaking tinny bass. The doors closed. The train lurched forward, and then, 3 stops later, it stopped. "Signal malfunction," the conductor's voice crackled over the intercom. "We apologize for the delay. We should be moving shortly." Shortly turned into 10 minutes. 10 minutes turned into 15. I watched the seconds tick away on my phone screen, watched my margin collapse into panic. By the time we started moving again, it was 8:34 a.m. I wouldn't be 15 minutes early. I'd be lucky to be on time. When I finally emerged from the subway at 8:47, the rain had intensified into something biblical. I ran, shoes splashing through puddles, jacket plastered to my shoulders, briefcase banging against my hip. The Parker and Cumber building rose ahead of me like a glass cathedral, all sharp angles and mirrored surfaces reflecting the storm. I reached the lobby doors at 8:56 a.m., and that's when I saw her. She was young, maybe an intern, maybe an assistant, standing just outside the revolving doors with a box of files clutched against her chest. The box was disintegrating in the rain, cardboard sagging, corners splitting. Papers were sliding out, fluttering toward the gutter. She was crying. Not loud, theatrical crying. The quiet kind. The kind that happens when you're 22 and everything feels like it's falling apart and you can't afford to fall apart because you need this job, this internship, this fragile foothold in a world that doesn't care if you drown. I stopped. I had 4 minutes. 4 minutes to get through security, find the elevator, reach the 42nd floor and walk into that conference room with my chin up and my desperation hidden. 4 minutes between me and the life I'd been chasing. Rachel's voice echoed in my head. "Don't apologize for anything. Don't let them see you sweat." The girl bent down, trying to scoop papers from a puddle. The ink was already bleeding, words dissolving into blue streaks. I thought about the note in my wallet. "Keep your head when doors swing shut." I set my briefcase down and knelt beside her. "Here," I said, gathering the driest files I could find. "Let's salvage what we can." She looked at me, mascara streaking, hair plastered to her forehead, and for a second, I saw myself. Saw every version of me that had ever been too late, too underprepared, too desperate to ask for help. "You don't have to—" "I know," I said, "but I'm already soaked." We worked quickly. I gave her my jacket to cover the box. She gave me a shaky smile. By the time we finished, it was 9:02 a.m. I was late. The panic should have crushed me. Instead, I felt something else. Calm. Clarity. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you made a choice you can live with. I straightened my tie, picked up my briefcase, and walked through the revolving doors. Whatever happened next, I'd earned it honestly. The receptionist looked at me like I'd tracked mud into a museum, which, technically, I had. "Name?" "I'm here for the 9 o'clock interview. Junior analyst position." She glanced at her computer screen, then at the clock on the wall. 9:04 a.m. "You're late." "I know. I apologize." "Mr. Parker values punctuality." "I understand." She picked up the phone, murmured something I couldn't hear, then hung up. 42nd floor, conference room B, they're already waiting. I nodded, thanked her, and headed toward the elevators. My shoes squelched with each step. In the mirrored walls, I looked like someone who'd lost a fight with a car wash. Another candidate stood near the elevators, a man about my age, perfect hair, perfect suit, perfectly dry. He looked me up and down and smirked. Rough morning? Something like that. The elevator chimed. We stepped inside. The doors closed with a pneumatic hiss, sealing us into a small cube of tension and cologne. First rule of consulting, the man said, eyes on his phone. Control the variables you can control. I didn't respond. I was too busy feeling the note in my wallet, warm against my thigh, like it had a pulse of its own. The elevator climbed. 40 floors, 40 seconds of silence. I counted heartbeats. When the doors opened, the man stepped out first, walking with the easy confidence of someone who'd never helped a stranger pick up soggy files in the rain. I followed him down a long corridor, marble floors, soft lighting, the faint smell of expensive coffee. Conference room B waited at the end, glass walls revealing 3 figures seated around a table. I took a breath. Keep your head when doors swing shut. I opened the door. The room was large, cold, and designed to make you feel small. Glass walls on 3 sides offered a panoramic view of the city below, rain streaking down like the room itself was crying. A long table stretched across the center, polished to a mirror shine. 3 interviewers sat on one side, 2 men, 1 woman, all wearing expressions that gave away nothing, and at the head of the table, a 4th chair. Empty. Please sit, the woman said, gesturing to the chair across from them. I sat. My damp suit stuck to the leather. The man on the left, mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses, grey suit, opened a folder. You're late. Yes. I apologize. Punctuality is one of our core values. I understand. Do you? The woman leaned forward. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. Because our clients don't accept excuses, they accept results. I met her gaze. Steady. Calm. I was helping someone outside, an intern who needed assistance. I made a choice. The man on the right, younger, slicked-back hair, navy blazer, scoffed quietly. So you prioritized a stranger over your own career? I prioritized a person over a clock. Silence. The 3 interviewers exchanged glances, some kind of silent communication I couldn't decode. Then the woman spoke again. Tell us why you want to work at Parker & Co. I told them. Not the rehearsed answer I'd practiced in the mirror, but the truth. I talked about wanting to solve problems that mattered, about believing that businesses could be engines for good, not just profit, about needing a place that valued people as much as performance. They listened, wrote notes, asked follow-up questions that felt less like an interview and more like an interrogation, and then halfway through a question about teamwork, I saw it. On the table, partially obscured by the man's folder, was a document, a contract maybe, or a memo. I couldn't read the text, but I could see the signature at the bottom, that flourish on the P, the tight loop of the K, the collapsing R. My heart stopped. It was the same, exactly the same. Liam Parker. My hand moved unconsciously to my wallet, feeling the shape of the folded note through the leather. The woman was still talking, asking me something about adaptability, but her voice sounded distant now, muffled, like I was underwater. I forced myself to focus, answered the question, kept my face neutral, but inside, a single thought repeated on loop. It's him. It's actually him. The interview lasted 43 minutes. By the end, I'd answered questions about ethics, pressure, failure, ambition. They'd tested my technical knowledge, my problem-solving skills, my ability to stay composed under scrutiny. I must have done okay because when it ended, the woman stood and shook my hand. We'll be in touch, she said. Standard corporate speak for don't call us, we'll call you. I thanked them, gathered my things, and walked toward the door. Wait. I turned. The younger man was standing now, holding his phone. Before you go, can you confirm your mobile number for scheduling purposes? I rattled off the digits. He nodded, typed something, then set his phone down. Actually, he said, Mr. Parker would like a word with you, privately. The room seemed to tilt. Mr. Parker? He's been monitoring the interviews remotely. He'd like to speak with you in his office. Top floor. The other 2 interviewers were watching me now, their expressions still unreadable. I nodded. Of course. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than the first. My reflection stared back at me from the polished walls, rumpled, damp, out of place. I tried to smooth my hair. It didn't help. When the doors opened, I stepped into a different world. The 42nd floor was corporate sleek. The top floor was something else. Wood paneling, soft lighting, original artwork. The kind of space that whispered old money and earned legacy. A woman in her 50s met me at the elevator. "This way, please." She led me down a short hallway to a corner office. Double doors, dark wood, brass handles. She knocked once, then pushed them open. "You're 9 o'clock," she said, then stepped aside. I walked in. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline. A mahogany desk sat at the center, clean except for a single lamp, a laptop, and a framed photograph I couldn't make out from the doorway. And behind the desk, standing with his back to me, was a man in a charcoal suit. He turned around. Mid-40s. Dark hair threaded with grey. Sharp jawline softened by the faintest smile. The kind of face that belonged on magazine covers and keynote stages. "Please," he said. "Sit." I sat. He studied me for a moment, hands folded on the desk. Then he spoke. "You helped someone this morning outside, in the rain." It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Why?" "She needed help." "You were late for an interview at one of the most competitive firms in the country. You risked your future for a stranger." I met his eyes. "I didn't risk my future, I chose my values." Something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, something deeper. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a folder. Opened it. Inside were notes, observations, transcripts, evaluations. At the top of the page, my name, and beneath it, a single line, handwritten, "Lobby incident, 8:56 a.m. Subject prioritized assistance over punctuality, consistent with core philosophy." "I test my candidates," Liam Parker said quietly. "Not just in conference rooms, in hallways, lobbies, elevators. The moments when they think no one's watching." My throat tightened. That girl with the files, one of my assistants. The files were already ruined, damaged in transit yesterday. I asked her to stage the situation this morning, to see who would stop. He closed the folder. 7 candidates interviewed today. You were the only one who helped." I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning, trying to catch up to a reality that had just shifted sideways. "Character," Parker continued, "is what you do when the cost is real and the audience is gone. Resume, tell me what you've done, but pressure reveals who you are." He paused. "Now, I'd like to ask you about something else." He opened another drawer. This time when his hand emerged, it held a piece of paper, old, creased, yellowed at the edges. My breath caught. "I believe," Liam Parker said, setting the paper on the desk between us, "you have something that matches this." It was a note. Identical format, same handwriting. "Keep your head when doors swing shut." Liam Parker. My hand moved to my wallet without thinking. I pulled out my own note, unfolded it with trembling fingers, and placed it beside his. Perfect mirror images. Parker leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. Then he said the 7 words I'd carried for years. "Keep your head when doors swing shut." 3 seconds of silence. Then, "Now I understand." "I started the program 15 years ago," Parker said, his voice quieter now, almost reflective. "Anonymous mentorship. I'd visit high schools, public schools mostly, underfunded districts where kids didn't have family connections or private tutors, and I'd leave notes in lockers. Random lockers. No pattern. Just faith." He stood, walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The notes were simple, motivational phrases, nothing profound, but I signed them with my real name. I wanted them to have weight, to feel like a promise from someone who existed. "Why?" I asked. He turned to face me. "Because when I was 17, I found a note in my locker. From a teacher I'd never met. It said, 'You're capable of more than you know,' that's it. 8 words. But I kept it, carried it through college, through my first failed startup, through every moment I wanted to quit." He walked back to the desk, picked up my note, held it up to the light. That teacher died before I could thank him, so I decided to pass it forward. Leave notes for kids who might need them. Hope that someday, somehow, they'd remember. And you remember them all? I asked. No. He set the note down gently. I left hundreds of notes over the years. I don't remember the schools, the lockers, the faces. It was never about control. It was about planting seeds and trusting the soil. He looked at me. But when your resume came across my desk 3 weeks ago, I Googled you, found your high school, cross-referenced the dates, and I realized you were one of them, one of the notes. My chest felt tight. So this whole thing, the interview, the test in the lobby, was real, he said firmly. I didn't give you the job because of the note. I gave you the test because of it. I wanted to see if the person who kept that note for 7 years was the same person who would stop to help a stranger in the rain. He sat down, met my eyes across the desk. You passed. Liam Parker offered me the job that afternoon. Not just junior analyst, something called the Foundations Initiative, a 2-year rotational program designed for candidates who demonstrated ethical leadership under pressure. Translation: people who helped strangers in the rain. You'll work across departments, he explained. Strategy, operations, client relations. You'll see how the firm operates from the inside. And at the end of 2 years, if you're still interested, you'll help me redesign the program, make it better. Why me? Because you kept the note, he said simply. Most people would have thrown it away. You carried it like it mattered. He pulled a business card from his desk drawer, wrote something on the back, and handed it to me. The front had his name, title, contact information. The back had a single line in that same slanted handwriting. Keep your head when doors swing shut. Now it's your turn to leave the notes. I stared at it, feeling the weight of something larger than a job offer. I'll need an answer by Monday, Parker said. I looked up at him, this man who'd left a note in a locker 7 years ago, never knowing if it would matter. Yes, I said. I accept. He smiled. A real smile this time, warm and unguarded. Good. Welcome to Parker & Co. We shook hands. His grip was firm, steady, certain. As I left his office and rode the elevator back down to the lobby, I kept replaying his words in my head. Now it's your turn to leave the notes. That night, I called Rachel. I got it, I said when she picked up. Silence. Then, you're lying. I'm not. Wait, seriously? Parker & Co.? They hired you? They did. She screamed, actual screaming. I had to hold the phone away from my ear. When she finally calmed down, she asked me how it happened. I told her everything. The rain, the girl with the files, the test, the note. All of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You know what's crazy? She said finally. What? You broke every rule I gave you. You were late. You helped a stranger. You let them see exactly who you are. I know. And it worked. Yeah. Another pause. I'm proud of you, she said softly. Really proud. After we hung up, I sat on my couch and unfolded the note one more time. The original note, creased and faded. I looked at Parker's signature, at the words I'd read 1,000 times. Keep your head when doors swing shut. For 7 years, I thought those words were about endurance, about surviving when life got hard. Now I understood they were about something else. Choice. When doors swing shut, when pressure mounts, when stakes rise, when no one's watching, that's when your values matter most. Not because someone's grading you, because you're defining yourself. I took the new business card Parker had given me and placed it in my wallet right next to the old note. 2 signatures, 2 moments, 1 philosophy. I wasn't the same person who'd found that note in a locker 7 years ago, but I was someone that person would recognize, and that felt like enough. 6 weeks into the job, I faced my first real test. A senior partner asked me to finalize a client report over the weekend, standard corporate pressure. Except my teammate, a quiet analyst named Marcus, had just gotten news that his father was in the hospital. He needed to leave, immediately. The partner didn't care. Family emergency or not, he said, the client expects delivery by Monday morning. I need both of you here. Marcus stood in the hallway afterward, phone in hand, face pale. I don't know what to do, he said. If I leave, I'll get fired. If I stay... He didn't finish the sentence. I thought about the note, about tests that happen when no one's watching. Go, I said. I'll handle the report. You can't finish it alone. I'll figure it out. Your dad needs you. Go. He left. I stayed. I worked through Friday night, through Saturday, through Sunday morning, drank bad coffee and survived on vending machine snacks, finished the report at 4 a.m. Monday, bleary-eyed and exhausted. When Marcus came back Tuesday, he found me asleep at my desk. You finished it, he said, staring at the submitted file on my screen. Yeah. Why? I thought about how to answer that. Decided honesty was simplest. Because someone once left me a note that said to keep my head when doors swing shut, and I think that means taking care of people when it costs you something. Marcus didn't say anything, just nodded. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a coffee, real coffee from the expensive place downtown. Thank you, he said quietly. I took the coffee. It was still warm. Don't mention it. 3 months later, I found an envelope on my desk, plain white, no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper, neat handwriting, black ink. You're building something that matters. Keep going. Someone who's watching. No signature beyond that. No name. I looked around the office, but everyone was busy, heads down, focused on their screens. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my wallet next to the other two. And I smiled. Because I understood now. The notes weren't about the words. They were about the moment. The reminder, when you needed it most, that someone believed in you. That you weren't invisible, that your choices mattered. I pulled out my own pen, tore a page from my notebook and wrote, "Keep your head when doors swing shut." I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. I walked to the intern bullpen, found an empty desk and slipped the note into the drawer where someone would find it later. Then I went back to work. A year into the job, Liam Parker called me into his office again. "I have a question for you," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Okay. Do you think what I did was leadership or manipulation?" I'd thought about this question for months, turned it over in my mind during long commutes and sleepless nights. "Both," I said finally. He raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "You manipulated the situation, set up a test without consent. That's ethically gray." "Agreed. But you also gave people a choice, real choice. You didn't force anyone to help, you just created the conditions for character to show itself." Parker nodded slowly. "And the difference?" "Intent," I said. "You weren't trying to trick people into failure. You were trying to find people who'd succeed when it mattered." He smiled. "Good answer." He pulled out a file, slid it across the desk. "I'm expanding the Foundations initiative, 20 candidates next year across 5 offices. I want you to help me design the selection process." I opened the file. Inside were proposals, budgets, timelines, and on the first page, a handwritten note. "Signatures fade, choices don't." I looked up at him. "Is this my test?" "No," he said. "This is your responsibility. The tests are over. Now comes the work." 2 years later, I stood in a high school gymnasium in South Brooklyn, watching students file past rows of lockers. It was the last week before winter break. The halls smelled like floor wax and teenage exhaustion. I had a stack of notes in my pocket, 27 of them, each one different, each one personal. "You're stronger than your circumstances. Keep going. Someone's rooting for you. The world needs what only you can build." I slipped them into lockers at random, no pattern, no plan, just faith. Some would be thrown away, some would be forgotten. But maybe, just maybe, one person would keep it, carry it, let it shape them in ways they wouldn't understand for years. And maybe someday, I'd meet them again. Not because I was testing them, because we were both trying to build something worth keeping. I left the last note in a locker on the second floor, tucked between a math textbook and a crumpled lunch bag. Then I walked out into the cold December air, hands in my pockets, and caught the train back to Manhattan. Behind me, in a locker I'd never see again, 8 words waited in the dark. "Keep your head when doors swing shut. No signature, no name. Just a promise from someone who believed in strangers, because that's what notes do. They remind us we're not alone. They remind us our choices echo. They remind us that signatures fade, but kindness doesn't. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. Do you think Parker's hidden tests were true leadership or manipulation? Tell me in the comments. If this story resonated, hit like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional, cinematic stories about quiet choices and big consequences. Stories written by fate.